Hey Joe, hope all is well. Recently, I was diagnosed with mild apnea, and while not being as serious a diagnosis as severe apnea or narcolepsy, I've struggled for a long time to find the energy to do things. I've pushed through it in many respects, but I'm almost always feeling fatigued and exhausted. I almost never feel well rested. So, my question to you is, how do you cope with the tiredness you must experience every day?
Apnea sucks, man. I'm sorry that you have that. They thought I had sleep apnea for a bit, and I had to take home. Well, like when I had a sleep study, I've had multiple sleep studies, and the first time I had the sleep study, the machine broke because there was just so much wrong with me. No, I'm kidding. They were like, okay, well, it might be sleep apnea, it might be this, it might be that, but we have to do a daytime sleep study now to confirm whether or to see if it's narcolepsy or not. So the defining symptom of narcolepsy is not what it's shown to in popular culture, in that you fall asleep randomly or anything like that. That is extremely rare, and it's more linked to cataplexy than it is to narcolepsy. The actual defining symptom of narcolepsy is that you dream instantly upon falling asleep. So if you ever have a 20-minute nap and you had a dream during that 20-minute nap, then you have experienced the defining symptom of a narcoleptic. Now, every body is different, and none of us are robots. It is possible for a normal sleeping brain to have had a nap and had a dream in those 20 minutes, but most of the time, a normal sleeping brain will take anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes to enter sleep state, which is REM sleep, REM sleep. A narcoleptic can enter that instantly. They can enter that even when they're awake. So I've explained it before on stream as narcolepsy is a series of 3 switches, but they're more like 3 dimmer switches because it's not on or off. It's a gradient from the first switch being awake or asleep, paralyzed or not paralyzed, and dreaming or not dreaming. And in a normal brain, those are light switches. You're either asleep or you're not, you're paralyzed or you're not, or you're dreaming or you're not. Whereas in a narcoleptic brain, not only are they dimmer switches, they can also go off in any order at any time. So you could be awake and suddenly you are paralyzed, which is cataplexy and also sleep paralysis. You could be awake and you are dreaming, which is hallucinations. Usually they're auditory hallucinations, and you can be awake and suddenly you can be very, very tired and you have an irresistible urge to sleep, and that's the awake or asleep. So that is what's usually misunderstood as the sleep attack in pop culture. It's just an irresistible urge to sleep. But I'm sure there are some narcoleptics that do have it way worse than I do, that do have that sort of thing where they just cannot for the life of them keep their eyes open and it looks like they kind of fall over. But the cataplexy, in case no one knows what that is, cataplexy is usually when you experience an intense emotion. Usually it's laughter, and your knees will buckle and suddenly you can't really stand properly. I am fortunate that I don't really have severe symptoms when it comes to the cataplexy or the hallucinations. I do experience cataplexy sometimes, I do experience hallucinations sometimes, but usually it's upon waking up. Same for the cataplexy. The sleep paralysis is usually when I wake up, I get sleep paralysis. I used to get it quite a bit, but haven't been experiencing it much lately. Yeah, so to get back to your thing about sleep apnea, yeah, I had the CPAP machine for a little bit, and that was just hell. I would wake up and rip it off in my sleep because I don't really get paralyzed in my sleep like most people do. I thrash a lot. I will get up and walk around. I sleepwalk. I've gotten better as time has gone on, but Lily can attest to the amount of times that she just found me just walking around in my sleep and talking to her and everything and having no memory of it in the morning.
Knowing if you're awake or not when you're talking to me.
Yeah,
because he sounds like he's awake.
That sort of thing. And I don't know why I've gotten better over time. It used to be that it was linked to dreams, and I would get stuck in dream loops and nightmares, and I would get stuck in dreams within dreams where I would think that I'm awake and then it turns out that I'm not, that sort of thing. And those were really scary, and they would get very frightening and very unsettling. There have been a few times in my life where I have thought to myself, what if I'm asleep right now? ZZZZ, and I will close my eyes, and trying to wake myself up out of a nightmare in a dream is sort of like if you imagine a fist behind your eyes when you're closing your eyes and you're just kind of pushing out. That usually wakes me up. And there have been a few times in my life where I've been like, hey, it'd be really funny if I was asleep right now, and then I try to do that and I've woken up, because the dreams are that lifelike and that real, and that really starts to fuck with your sense of perception and your sense of reality and what's real and what's not. Most layers of dream loops I've been in, I think, have been 4 or 5, and the last 2 were just so realistic. just so I can't even describe how realistic they were, and how unsettled I was. Fucked off for days, after that. I was so unsettled after that happened. And yeah, but I set up sort of like dream defenses where I started to realize what was a trigger and what was not. Like, some of them were weird. Like, some of them would be like a bouncing ball, a soccer ball or a beach ball coming down a hallway, and then I would know that a nightmare was coming. Sometimes it would be like someone laughing in a specific way. There's like the hairy faced man that I would see like peering off from around a corner. There was like a group of like 3 old ladies, kind of like almost like the crones in Witcher 3 now I think about it, but not quite that grotesque. Like some of them were nightmarish, some of them were just like really benign. And I would notice that whenever I saw them, that like the nightmare was going to try and like grab me, and I had to like wake up really, really quickly. And it's, again, it's all in my head. It's myself fucking with myself. There is no like consciousness to it. It's me. But I would feel like whenever I would get into that moment where like it would be like a rush of the nightmare trying to grab me before I would wake up, because it was my consciousness fucking with myself. But yeah, I set up these defenses where I would notice these things and also just wake myself up every few minutes some nights. And that would make my sleep quality really, really low, but it would meant that I wasn't having nightmares and dreams all the time anymore. But when you have a lot of dreams and nightmares, I don't know if this is a common thing. Lily seems to think, Lily agrees with this. Lily's experience is the same, I should say. I'm not speaking very clearly tonight. Sorry, I'm a bit tired as we're getting into it. That if you spend the whole night dreaming, you wake up more exhausted than if you hadn't. Is that something that most people agree with in chat? Like, if you've ever had a long bout of dreaming, it's like, wow, I'm way more tired. So it's sort of like do you want to be tired because you were waking yourself up all the time because you didn't want to have the nightmare? Or do you want to be tired because you were stuck in a dream every single night? Because that's what it's like. It's like whenever I'm asleep, I dream the whole time. And I set up these defenses and these systems to not have to go through that, just through trial and error and my subconscious kind of just fighting back against it. And that worked for a few years, actually, up until like right before Finn was born, till about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. And just right before, I think maybe it might have been when we moved here to Moncton, but it might be right before, they stopped working for whatever reason, and now I'm back to dreaming a lot, all over and over and over again. I think I mentioned in some streams, if you go back and find it, please. It was
right before we came here.
Please don't try, because it's not that interesting. Joe, how are you doing today? I'm doing okay. I had one of the worst nights of sleep of my life last night, but I've recovered from it fairly well. I kept waking up I think it was like every 10 minutes I kept waking up, and usually on a bad night it's every 25 minutes I keep waking up. And yeah, last night it was just really, really bad. I kept needing to piss too. I kept waking up to piss. Like I woke up like I think like 15 times to piss. It couldn't have been 15 times, but it felt like it. Maybe I'm dying of the piss disease. Bad dreams? Oh, I have bad dreams every night now. It used to be that I didn't have them for a couple of years. I had learned how to not have bad dreams. I speak about it in a Q&A for a bit. The other thing is that I spoke about narcolepsy and dreams before, and I said it sounds kind of messed up in science fiction, kind of like Inception or whatever, that I set up some sort of defense mechanism against nightmares where I've learned triggers to recognize triggers when I'm asleep, of when I'm going to be in a deep nightmare or deep sleep and I wake myself up. Like I cause myself to wake up, and this resulted in me usually waking up, like no joke, probably like 100 times every single night. Just keep waking up just for just a little second, just waking up. And sometimes I go back to the dream, sometimes I don't, but that's enough to not have this disturbed sleep experience. And that's been working for a while. But funny enough, after I said it on a stream a couple Q&As ago, and it's pretty scary, sleep paralysis. It's pretty awful, and I'm happy that I don't get it very often. But I used to get a lot more, and I've spoken about this in some previous Q&As about how it's sort of like setting up a bunch of defense triggers. I know how that sounds, but I've learned when I'm asleep to realize I'm asleep, because I hate sleep paralysis so much that I know that when I wake up, I need to be aware and break through the sleep cycle that I'm in, so I wake up actually fully conscious, and that I never enter a state where I am fully within sleep paralysis, so I don't wake up unable to move, because I hate it so much. So I will be able to recognize when a dream is becoming a nightmare, for instance. And usually when a dream becomes a nightmare, I wake up so suddenly but still within the dream. That's usually when I'm paralyzed. So for a long time it was strange, and it sounds really silly, but it would be something like, in the dream, if a door suddenly just kind of opened, not even violently or slowly, just if a door opens and I'm in the middle of a dream, then that typically meant that something awful was about to come in and scare the shit out of me, and it'd be some sort of nightmare. It wouldn't typically be a monster. It would just be someone that I would look and just have an intense fear of, or it would be like a ball kind of just rolling down a hallway, stuff like that within the dream, and it would just trigger me to just wake up immediately. And that those kind of defense reactions have gotten to the point now where I typically don't sleep for very long in long bursts when I am in bed. I can be in bed for say 8 hours, but in terms of the amount of time that I was asleep for a steady amount, a solid rate, won't be more than about 10-15 minutes. I will be waking up every 10 to 15 minutes, just a little bit, to make sure that I'm not caught in a nightmare or caught in sleep paralysis. It's not perfect though. Sometimes it still does happen, but thankfully I haven't been caught in sleep paralysis for quite a while. It stopped working, so I've actually been having a lot of dreams and a lot of nightmares lately, and on the one hand, that's made me get better sleep because I'm not waking up as much, but on the other hand, I'm waking up a lot after being stuck in these dreams for so long that I forget who I am for a second when I wake up. If you've ever had a dream, everyone's had this. If you've ever had a dream that felt so real and felt so, strong that it lingered with you for a few hours throughout the day, probably when you're younger, it happens more because, you're not into some intense work period or career or something that you kind of have to just focus on that. But that sort of thing that ever happened to you probably happens to everyone at least a couple times in their life. Imagine that happening every day. And not to be all edgy, but probably more intense as well, because that's what narcolepsy is that it's a dreaming disease more than anything else. That's happening lately a lot more, and that kind of messes with me a little bit, but I'm okay. I'm accepting it right now because the nightmares aren't that frequent, and it's making me physically get more sleep, and I feel better physically, but mentally I feel kind of more drained and exhausted, because I feel like when you're dreaming at that level, it's kind of like your brain is being overclocked, so it sort of messes with you. You wake up feeling kind of fried, and but so far so good. Yeah, so I'm tired. I taught myself like defenses to stop myself from having bad dreams and to wake up when I was in one, but those don't work anymore. They haven't worked for about a year. But there was a time where I said in a couple streams, I'm like, I'm really, really tired. My sleep problems are coming back, and that's what it was. It was like my defenses aren't working as well as they are anymore, and I'm dreaming every single night again. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, and sleep apnea is awful, and wearing the mask is awful. I don't mean to be guilty of what a lot of people have said to me over the years, when it comes to poor sleep, and they just say, why don't you just masturbate before you go to sleep, or, just tire yourself out or whatever. That doesn't work. You think we haven't tried that, people with sleep disorders, that we haven't tried that. It's like saying to someone who's depressed, just don't be depressed anymore, just try not to think about it. It's complete bullshit. So I hate to be that kind of person, but there are things that you can do that aren't the CPAP machine, and I'm just assuming that you are going to CPAP machine. Billy Connolly is a famous Scottish comedian. I think he has something like Parkinson's now, and he has sleep apnea. He had a lot of success with wearing a shirt to bed that had a tennis ball sewed into a pouch on the back of it, which sounds ridiculous. It could be an apple or an almond, something that's kind of round shaped and hard. And that means that you can't sleep on your back, because that's the problem when you have sleep apnea, is when you sleep on your back, your face kind of condenses into your neck and you don't breathe properly, and you get really low oxygen rate to your brain because you're not breathing properly, and you can die from sleep apnea. I think that's what one of the giant bomb guys died from. People have died from this, they suffocate on their own apnea. So you can try that so it's not the machine, and to make sure that you're always sleeping on your side. If you are on the heavier side, if you lose some weight, that can help a lot too. But I think that's a more low-tech solution to having the mask strapped to your face, forcing air into your lungs mechanically while it makes this big, huge noise, and, dries out your nose and your mouth, and it's just awful, 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 awful. But for dealing with it, I don't know, I just do it, man. I know that sounds terrible, and I'm really, really sorry. And like, I can't really give you any good advice. It's something I've struggled with my whole entire life, and it's just, I just do it, like Lamayo forehead, I just keep going even though I'm tired, So it's just, you just do it. So sorry, but yeah, it's been a problem since I was a teenager. Specifically is when it was the worst, and I struggled really hard to be able to get up and go to school. But yeah, you just try your best, and don't be too hard on yourself when you might need to go to bed too early, and maybe look into some sleep hygiene. All that stuff doesn't really help me, like making sure that you have you're avoiding screens right before bed. Make sure that you don't read in bed, that sort of thing. Like, bed should only be for sleeping. A lot of sleep specialists will tell you, don't do anything else in bed other than sleeping. You will associate the bed more with sleep, and if you try to go to sleep and you don't fall asleep within 20 minutes, then get out of bed and go do something else, and then come back and try again. Don't associate the bed with a place that you're just laying down resting. Don't use screens before bed. Get one of those flux where it changes the color of your screen toward the end of the night before you get off. It'll make you more sleepy, and you won't be more awake. And make sure that you're keeping a good sleep schedule, that you're trying to get up at the same time every day. Get really a good amount of sunlight and everything. But that doesn't work for me because of the sleep disorder. It makes absolutely no goddamn difference, and it's to the point where caffeine can make me sleepy. You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes for sleep disorders, it's the opposite of what it is for everybody else. So I don't know if it's just the apnea that you have, but yeah, I would just look into maximizing the efficiency of the amount of sleep that you can get if it is just the apnea problem, and you might feel better.
Last Q&A, you spoke about having dreams that were unnervingly close to reality. Do you know about reality checks that can be used to initiate lucid dreaming, like holding your nose closed, and if you can still breathe through it, you are dreaming? Are the dreams so realistic that reality checks like that don't work?
I don't think I've ever tried that one in particular, but my reality check is when I close my eyes and try to imagine a fist breaking out from behind my eyes. If I do that right now, like, I can actually feel quite an intense building of pressure there. If I'm asleep, that wakes me up every single time. So maybe I've never had to develop one of the other ones. Because of my sleep disorder, horror movies for me for a long time were literally nightmare fuel, like literally. So like I avoided a lot of horror movies, and also when I was younger, my dad exposed me to some horror movies way earlier than he should have, and that was not his fault. Like well, maybe a little bit his fault. Like I want to say, like I was like, I really want to watch it, and he probably just got tired of saying no to me, and then he's like, okay. So like I was quite afraid of horror movies for a long time until I got a little older. Like to tell you something that's just a little embarrassing, like for a long time I thought I was haunted. Like I really did think, like, just legit straight up thought I was haunted because of the sleep disorder, because I would see ghosts often. So I just straight up thought I was haunted. So anything to do with ghosts would be very unsettling for me, so I wouldn't want to just, make that even worse. I don't know. Narcolepsy has been kind of frustrating. Not kind of. It has been frustrating in many ways. First of all, going all my life without knowing that I had it. I used to believe in ghosts. I used to think I was haunted because I used to see and hear things. When I was a kid, and I'm not exaggerating, at least a few times a week, every single night when I would go to bed, I would just be about to drifting off, and I would hear someone whisper my name into my ear, like lips pressed against my earlobe, that close right into my ear, and I used to jolt awake, like holy shit, because it was an auditory hallucination, which is apparently quite common. That's something that a lot of people report. So I used to think that there were supernatural forces. I used to think I was haunted and there were ghosts and all this other bullshit. I used to tell people, either they're a ghost or I'm crazy, and it turns out that I'm kind of crazy because that's what it is. I remember when I did that day when I was napping. After the second nap, the technician that's monitoring it for the doctor to see the results later, he comes in after the second nap. So he's seen me nap twice now, and immediately enter REM sleep. He can see the results already. So he comes in and he says to me, okay, it's like, and remember, this is me who, until fairly recently thought, there was supernatural bullshit. And he says to me, so So what can you do? And I'm like, what? And he's like, the results that you're having, you know, every single person that's come in here with these results, you know, the last one could see through walls. The one before that was, she was a really great painter. So what can you do? And I'm like, what? What are you fucking talking about? Like, are you fucking crazy? What the fuck is the matter? Like, it's like, yeah, and that.
This was a clinic that specialized in sleep disorders.
Yeah.
Too. This wasn't just like some.
That guy was off his rocker. Yeah. But I've seen some horror movies. As I've gotten older, I've been like, yeah, it's fine. If they count as horror movies, but this is kind of cheating because I don't like it because it's a horror movie. I know this is like a really like fucking normie opinion, but my favorite horror movie is probably Saw. Like, I really like Saw. I like how that movie is set up. I like the concept of it. Again, if you like, because Danganronpa, what we said earlier, I think people are probably gonna understand that. Yeah, I really like Saw. Saw 2, and I think I didn't watch any more after Saw 2. Maybe Saw 3, I can't really remember, but I really like Saw.
Hey Joe, really enjoy your videos. My question is about how you deal with your sleep illness. I have idiopathic hypersomnia and was diagnosed pretty recently. I know that narcolepsy is not the same thing, but I'd still like to hear about your experience.
Sure. First of all, idiopathic hypersomnia is a sleep disorder in which a person is excessively sleepy during the day and has great difficulty being awakened from sleep. Idiopathic means there is not a clear cause. Okay, so this is very similar to what I have. I have periods of excessive sleepiness during the day, and Lily can attest to this. It is very difficult to wake me up. Yeah. However, it's really, really easy to wake me up from a nap. It's really easy to wake me up when I have just fallen asleep. But if I've been asleep for like hours, usually like close to the time when it's time to get up, you know, which is just the worst time for it to be difficult to wake up. It is very difficult for me to wake up. So basically, my experience with sleep is that I don't sleep very well for the first like maybe 2/3 of it. Like if I have a sleep period that is say 9 hours, for the first 6 hours, first of all, it might take me a long time to even fall asleep, and then I will have very restless sleep. I will wake up often in the first 6 hours. I will constantly be waking up. It's like a defense thing that I've set up, or it used to work at least, for avoiding having nightmares and everything. So I would wake up often, and I still kind of do. It just doesn't really help all that much. And when I do get back into the like deep sleep period, I have a lot more nightmares now. I used to be able to avoid them somehow from this weird janky system that I just accidentally set up for myself while I was sleeping. I should probably talk about narcolepsy just in case anyone here wasn't here for the last answer, but I'm a bit hesitant to repeat so much of what we already said before in this first Q&A. So I guess through the context it'll be fine. It's really frustrating, and I don't know if irony is the right word for it. You know, like you're tired all day and you're so sleepy, and there's these times where you can barely keep your eyes open, and then when it's finally time to go to bed and you can finally sleep and you just can't sleep anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's really frustrating, and I think even people that don't have a sleep disorder have this issue. You know, it's a fairly common complaint. You know, you're awake and you're wired all day. You're dead on your feet all day, especially if you have like a typical 9-to-5 job. And then when you finally get home after you have, you know, your dinner and your relaxing time, and you're still kind of tired, but you need to get through your evening routine, you're still really you're still really tired, and then it's finally time to go to sleep, and you're just like staring at the ceiling going, what the fuck, brain, what the fuck? And it's like that on steroids for me, where, you know, I think even when you have that kind of feeling, you know, most normal sleepers, when they have that experience during the week or something, it might take them an hour to fall asleep at the worst. You know, that's when they might go on Facebook and be like, it took me an hour to fall asleep last night, like, lol, so insomniac. Whereas like an hour is just me every single night. You know, it usually takes me about at least an hour to fall asleep. I would consider that a good night, unless I'm looping around and I am I go to sleep during a time when I'm in one of those excessive sleep moments because I'm trying to reset my schedule. Tragically though, when I'm in that kind of moment, when I go to sleep, if I ever have like a sleep attack from narcolepsy, I will go to sleep, and then I usually wake up a couple hours later and I'm refreshed, I'm fine, I'm gonna wake up now, and it just ends up like fucking my schedule over. Like I've been awake for like 24, 26, sometimes 28 hours straight. I've done much longer than that, but that's the typical time I'm awake for a reset cycle. And I've been awake for this long, barely got any sleep the previous nights, and then I finally get to go to sleep at like 9 p.m. I finally stayed awake and looped around to 9 p.m. and I go to sleep, and then I wake up at 2 in the morning and I'm like, oh, I'm wide awake. All right, time to go have a poop and then fucking clean the kitchen and do a lot of shit at work and all this other shit. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of bullshit. Like, and then I loop back around to like noon the next day and I'm just tired again and I'm back on the shitty schedule. So it's really frustrating. And it tends to be happening more as I get older, I'm noticing. It used to be when I would loop to reset that I would have an easier time actually staying asleep until the time I actually wanted to wake up. Conversely though, I'm finding it easier to stay on when I finally do get on the schedule. Like my favorite time to wake up is between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. That's my favorite. If I can get on a schedule where I'm waking up between 5 and 7, I love it. And I'm finding as I get older, once I get onto that schedule, I can keep it for much longer than I used to be able to. I still drift, and I'm gonna guess that maybe, I don't know, what would you say, Lily? I can keep on it for sometimes like 5 to 6 weeks now, right? And
it used to, yeah. Before you couldn't.
Yeah, and it's like, and then I go through this period. I'm in one of those bad periods right now. Actually, I'm in one of those bad periods where now I have to loop back around again, and that can be really frustrating. But then once I finally do it, I could stick on it for a while. But sometimes it could take me up to 2 weeks to loop back around because I get so tired.
Either, right? Like
yeah.
You might stay on it for 6 weeks and then you might get off of it, and then it takes you a bit to get back on it, and then you're only on it for 2 weeks and then you're back off it again. Like it's always, there's no pattern to any of it.
Yeah. But in general, I feel like I can stay on it a little longer now when as I'm getting older. I don't know why. Excessive sleep is, I don't get the stereotypical problem with narcolepsy, which is, like, because that doesn't really exist, is when you just fall over. Like, it's a cataplexy attack, and cataplexy is just paralysis. And I don't really experience much cataplexy, but it does happen sometimes, and it's a little scary. I was really worried about when we had kids. I was really worried about holding the babies when they were born because of the cataplexy, but it's never been an issue. And there's been like one time, like, period that when I've been on stairs and my knees have buckled a little bit because of a just out of nowhere cataplexy attack. But I was still able to hold myself, and it was fine. It only lasted about a second. But usually it happens when it's a period of a moment of intense emotion. Usually it's laughter. If you find something really, really funny and you're laughing really, really hard, you might lose your sense of balance a little bit. You might lose your control over the muscles in your legs, that sort of thing. But it doesn't really happen to me much. I can't really remember the last time it's happened intensely. So I'm quite lucky. I have, in terms of narcolepsy, I have very bad nightmares and very, very poor sleep. But in terms of the other things like sleep paralysis and cataplexy, and even daytime sleepiness, I would say I'm quite lucky. I don't have it that bad. Sleep paralysis is something that I haven't experienced properly in quite a while. I think I've found a way to just kind of like fight against it and not have to deal with it that much. I also recognize when it happens more than any other time, and that is when I have naps in an area that I am unfamiliar with sleeping in. Like, so if I have a nap even on the couch, like if I fall asleep on the couch, I'm probably gonna have a sleep paralysis as I'm falling asleep. So I've just learned not to do it. Just I have to be in bed falling asleep to avoid the sleep paralysis, and I hate it. I hate sleep paralysis so much. It sounds exactly what it is. Like you wake up and you can't move, and you're completely awake, you're completely lucid, you're completely conscious, but you can't open your eyes, you can't move your arms, you can't move your legs, and yeah, it's really, really bad. It's scary as shit, man. Sleep paralysis is often, when I had it, it was also accompanied by hypnagogic hallucination, which is just a really fun thing to say. It makes it even worse. So there've been times when I was younger that I woke up and and my room was just on fire, that sort of thing. Or there's been like some crazy like beast monster in the room with me, or there's been like one time it was just literally death, and death was like pounding across the room, like really, really heavy footsteps, just like boom, boom, like the room is shaking as like death is like circling the bed like a big wolf. And he kept saying to me like, why are you still here? Why are you still here? And it might even sound funny, like out of context, but it's like at the time, like I don't like, it was a hallucination, and I couldn't move. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I woke up and my heart was pounding like crazy, and I was finally able to move, and I was like, holy shit. So yeah, there's like those kind of experiences. At the flip side though, like I sometimes really enjoy the dreams that I have. And I feel like, oh, we're dead. I feel like I get a lot out of my dreams, and I get to experience things that I otherwise wouldn't, even though they're fake. I don't know, it gives me ideas and inspiration. I don't even think I have a specific example I can draw from, but I kind of feel like I get bonus thinking time, because I continue thinking while I'm asleep, if that makes sense. I appreciate it, and I think it's not the worst disorder to have, you know, if for being at least a little bit creative with the book writing and even the videos, but it's so exhausting. Yeah, it's so exhausting. I try not to talk about the narcolepsy that much. I don't think I've ever mentioned it more than a few times in passing on mainstreams, because just something in my head that I never wanted to come across like I'm whining about what I have. I really did not want to be like, hey, I'm making these videos, and oh, by the way, I'm disabled. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to have that. I didn't want people to feel any pressure or any sort of thing, you know, when we were first starting out, like, hey, you should support me because I'm making these videos, but also because I have this really, really bad sleep disorder. You know what I mean? So yeah. It says you were diagnosed pretty recently. Yeah, sleep disorders usually aren't diagnosed until much later in life. I was in my early 20s before I was diagnosed, and the sleep doctor said to me, you know, we're going to do all these tests for you and everything, and you might be narcoleptic, and you should really hope that you're not. And I'm like, okay. And in my head I was like, well, I'm that. Because he said that I'm that, and then the test results come back, and he says to me, "Yep, you're narcoleptic. So good luck with that." And he gave me these pills, this medication to deal with the daytime sleepiness that didn't really work, and didn't give me any other information whatsoever. No other information. It sent me for a brain scan just in case, and yeah, and that was it. No other information. Just all right, cool, thanks, doc. Yeah. Someone in chat was saying something about how they're worried about going into surgery and being completely aware of it, kind of like sleep paralysis and that. I've heard of that, and I've heard it's mostly a myth, but I'm also scared of that too. I had a procedure done where I had to be knocked out once, and I remember they put a tube down my throat, and they were checking my stomach, and they put like an intravenous catheter into my wrist. The nurse was talking to me about some stuff, and then we were having a conversation, and then the doctor came in. They explained what they were going to do first, and the doctor was very nice. And the doctor's like, okay, we're going to put this tube down your throat afterwards. And it's like, okay. And she injected the knockout whatever drugs into me. And then the drugs went in, and I remember kind of just talking to him, and then blacked out. And then I woke up trying to pull the tube out of my throat as he was putting it down, and the nurse and the doctor like in full panic mode going, you have to stop, and I'm like on this thing, and then I black out again, and then I'm being rolled out of a room, and I wake up, and I'm like, I see the checkout people, like the post procedure people, and I'm like, okay. And then I go back to the doctor, and I'm like, okay, so how did that go? And he's like, you're awake already? How are you awake already? And I was like, I don't know. So that's made me a little bit more worried about having any big procedure done, but I don't think it's a real thing. Like, I don't have any memory apart from that one time. Maybe they just needed some slightly stronger drugs.
You have an anesthesiologist, they're monitoring you the whole time. Like,
yeah.
That's their whole job, is just to watch you, so.
These doctors sound like NPCs. Oh, it wasn't done in Moncton.